Hello and welcome to the Zach Ratliff Show. I'm Zach. I'm glad to be with you. I'm glad you are with me. Thank God for another day. Thank God for another day in the greatest country that He's ever put on the face of this earth. It's our job to talk about it. It's our job to maintain it and grow it, and our job to know where we came from. So we're going to get into that. Um, First of all, I'd like to start by thanking my sponsors. I'd like to thank Mortgage Financial here in Texarkana. I'd like to thank Elmwood Custom Goods, and I'd like to thank Church on the Rock, Texarkana. That's churchontherock.org. Okay, today, my friends, is Columbus Day. I've seen an interesting turn on Columbus Day in my lifetime from celebrated to hated. Uh, Golly, I'm rhyming today. I might take up rap. Anyway, from celebrated to hated, has what and you remember the little 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? And at least in my generation, that was what we learned. And now we've come to understand that Columbus, wasn't, we knew there were people here, but the Vikings had been here in the northern parts of their area, and but all in all, and then it's called all in all, Columbus is who established the trade routes, who established the coming back and forth. So I went to Britannica.com and just kind of looked up some facts about this, and so I thought I'd start with that today. So the first landing was October 12th, 1492. Columbus was Italian. Now this his voyage was funded by Queen Isabella of Spain, but he was an Italian man. In 1792, which was the 300th anniversary of Columbus's landing, there was a celebration in New York City to celebrate the landing of Columbus. That was to promote patriotism and principles of democracy. Everybody was like, "Hey, look, this country wouldn't be where it was without him starting um, these voyages, without coming over, without Spain sending over." And even it's called the day of. Let me look. The day of something in Spain. It's not. It's not Columbus Day, but let's see. I've got it right here. Well, I had it right here. Anyway, well, I'll go on. It's recognized in Spain as a day of as what happened, and so but it was celebrated in 1792 as a day of to promote patriotism and the principles of democracy. Then in 1892, U.S. President Harrison celebrated the 400-year anniversary. And he said, "Hey, this is a one-time celebration, but we're going to celebrate that. Hey, without this day, without this man, we may look different. It would have been more time until the discovery of the new world, as it were." So then, in the late 1800s, late 19th century, Columbus Day becomes a day that's celebrated by Italian Americans because an Italian had discovered it. Right? This was a day of pride. And then, but even in, I think it was 1812, one of the largest lynchings in America happened of an Italian man down in New Orleans. And I know it's crazy. Somebody, it turns out people of all ethnicities used to get lynched. Anyway, this Italian man was lynched by these guys. And so it was a day to remember him, even. It was like, hey, we're going to celebrate. Um, Italians. So the Italians picked up the celebration of Columbus Day. They picked up kind of carrying it through. So then by 1937, um, it becomes a federal holiday by um, presidential proclamation. Hey, we're going to celebrate this. We're going to celebrate Columbus Day. But it was, for Italians, it was a big deal. They discovered America, right? So then by 1992, which would have put me in first grade, um, yeah, first grade, it's starting to get framed negatively. Oh, what about the indigenous people? Oh, what about this? Look, throughout history, people have been found and conquered. Yeah, they were here. Everyone in the world is better off for the United. And if you don't think that, this might not be the podcast for you, or maybe it is, and you can learn something. Um, but everyone in the world is better off through the founding of the United States of America. Has it always been perfect? No, far from it. But we're working on it, and we're still working on it. So anyway, so what about you know what about Columbus? He was born in Genoa. Now, not Genoa, Arkansas, which is close to here, but Genoa, Italy, or however you say it. I don't know. I say Genoa because that's how we say it here. Probably not right. In 1451, he was a master navigator. He made 4 transatlantic voyages. Now, there's been some dirt thrown on his name uh, by the leftists and the hippies here as of late, but this was a big deal. The establishment of or, coming across the Atlantic and getting here, establishing trade routes, establishing people want look 1492. It's another how long? 1776 is when the war goes down. So you're 100 and 290 years later, 280 years later. Anyway, it was the start of something great that's still ongoing. Let's have a little pride in where we come from. Let the Italians have their day. Let the Americans have their day. Thank God that he sent Columbus across here. I'm okay with it. We can be proud of our country. We don't have to go hide under a rock anymore. We don't have to be ashamed of having pride for our nation and being proud of where we come from. Don't be shamed into being quiet. Anyway, the kids just know they have a day out of school today for teacher in service, right? Frustrated. All right. Anyway, so anyway, just want to start with some Columbus. All right, X.com. This is X.com from Eric Doherty. Governor J.B. Pritzker says he's scared to turn over voter data from Illinois and doesn't want law enforcement making sure only Americans are voting. He gives a convoluted explanation on why he wants elections to be less secure. The Democrats can't have just U.S. citizens voting. They've lost the people. They've lost their way, honestly, if they ever had it. Well, what a crazy thing to say. Scared to turn it over to show that only Americans were voting. Now let's go to this from Michelle Maxwell on X.com. New York on the polls. Elsie Stefanik, um, is virtually tied in this race. New York could elect its first Republican governor in almost 25 years. I hope she does. Now, is this in response to the city um, New York City about to elect Mandami as mayor? Maybe. We have to be praying for our country and for each state and for our cities. We need to go back. One, we got to get back to Jesus. Number two, we have to go back to principles that will let this country flourish and let it, just let this country flourish. And New York and California and elsewhere have not been doing that so long. Okay, let's look at this. Jack Passo or Poso um, has this, and this is from Right Angle News Network. Breaking. Democrats are now demanding the removal of Dominion voting machines after a pro Trump investor bought the country and rebranded them as Liberty Voting. Some Democrats are even calling for paper ballots. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I thought you told us that 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 this was safe. The Dominion was good. It was flawless. There was no election manipulation, which we know now was not true. I mean, we watched 300,000 votes disappear for Trump overnight in 2020. Now, once again, I talked about this the other day on the show. Um, Democrats have a weird way Trump has a weird way of making Democrats defend something they say was indefensible. Oh, everybody, now their philosophy is everybody should be able to own a gun, which I agree with. And now it's, oh, the Dominion voting, that those have to go. What a wild world. What a wild world where you can just say something and a year and a half, 2 years later be completely against it. 4 years later be completely against it. Why? And especially when everything's recorded, right? Everything we say is recorded. Especially if you're a politician. Every stance you take is on the news, and the news just goes along with it and acts like you never said it. Like I saw over the weekend. I don't even think I have an article on this, but where they were like, "Oh, we never said that the COVID vaccine would make it where you can't get it." Like, whoa, whoa, whoa! Yes, you did. No, no, no. We never said that. It's amazing how much we're lied to and manipulated. Honestly. Anyway, we're gonna move on. I'll get fired up over that. Okay, this is a good one from Camus, Camus, on X.com. Wow. Could cows save the world? A shocking carbon study. A groundbreaking study from the University of Nebraska presents a paradigm shift in the climate conversation. The research concludes that raising more cattle is key to a carbon negative future, as they are a net positive for the atmosphere, producing more oxygen than methane and carbon they emit. What? Say it ain't so. I was talking. It's been a couple of years. I think I was on the radio when this came up, but you know, was it? I mean, it may have been my dad telling me. He grew up, on the farm and all the things, and he said, "Your grass, just natural grass in a field that will, if cows don't eat it, will die and then compact on each other, and then it will make more if it goes that way and deteriorates that way, will create more methane gas than the four-chambered stomach of a cow, which is going to eat it, absorb, and then regurgitate, chew the cud, absorb, regurgitate, chew the cud, process four times. Less methane is going to come out of that process than just allowing grass to naturally die in the field. But don't worry, the right is anti-science. The right doesn't know what they're talking about. The right hates the environment. Once again, they don't want us eating cows. They don't want us being able to produce our own food because it's all about power. If you're We have to look at this as everything that we're told is so someone can gain power. Once we understand that, the rest of it, I don't know, makes sense might be a stretch, but the rest of it at least fits. We're going to take away their food. We're going to take away their freedom of thought. We're going to take away their freedom of speech. We're going to take away their guns. And we're going to make them solely dependent on us. And then we're going to maintain and control everything. And they'll have to do what we say. Everything is about power. The climate hoax is about power. Your food situation is about power. You know, the anti, and I guess this goes into the comment, the anti petroleum push is about power. Some would say the petroleum push is about power. It's all about power all the time, every day. Anyway, support your local ranchers. Support, yeah, support American beef, man. Okay, here you go. This is from Substack.com. Howling Wolf. If you're not on Substack, you should be. It's got some good stuff. Um, this is Gary Boiler on Substack. A Pakistani imam in Italy gave a sermon saying that every Muslim should fight the infidels or face catastrophic consequences. If you're not Muslim, you are the infidel, by the way. No matter if you're Christian or agnostic or atheist or you want to marry your dog or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If you're not a Muslim, you're the infidel. The gays for Palestine, infidels. The First Baptist on Main Street, infidels. St. Anne's Catholic Church, wherever you are, because I'm sure there has to be one, infidels. Uh, you know, guy with the PhD in, you know, whatever science, and that's what you do, climate science, infidel. It doesn't matter. If you're not a Muslim, you're an infidel. And then even in the, some of the Islam, uh, they look at each other, they hate each other. They just gonna kill you first because you're the infidel. Anyway, the next day, since this happened in Italy, Prime Minister Georgina Maloney personally requested that he be deported. That's what I'm talking about, baby. And she and Trump have a good relationship from everything that you can see. I don't know. I've never been around them both at the same time. Um, but if I get the chance, I'll let you know. Um, but that's right. Hey, you're saying you want to do away with all the infidels? You've been in this country for 30 years, but now you're calling for a jihad against the infidels? You can go. You can go back to Pakistan. If all of these countries are doing it wrong, America, Canada, Italy, France, Great Britain, if we're all doing it wrong, why is there a push from the Islamic nations to come over here and then make it like the other? Because they're on a crusade to take over the world as their religion demands. We should have no bones about that. That's what's happening. Because as I said earlier, everything you see is about someone gaining power. And just, it makes sense to me. What do I know? All right, AmericanWireNews.com. Oh yeah, I've got to open this whole article. American Wire, AmericanWireNews.com. Democratic Rep Gwen Moore of Wisconsin either doesn't watch the news or is so far left he has lost all ability to reason. She claimed when talking to C-SPAN, hold on to your dresses, girls, so the wind doesn't blow it up when I say this. She claimed that Republicans own most of the media. The media is so against the Democrats these days that the Republicans own it. What world does this woman live in? What world is this even a sane statement? But don't worry, Democrats don't make sane statements. Who was the Democrat? Was he a representative that thought if you got the whole population of an island went on one side, it would flip upside down? Or they just say crazy stuff. But it doesn't matter as long as they'll play the game that the powers that be have them play. You can come say your crazy stuff. Just vote the way we tell you to vote. You can believe any wild thing you want to, but just get in line when I tell you to get in line. Just be subservient to me, the power broker, and you can say that the Republicans own the media. You can think that islands will flip over if the one guy that's on it goes on the wrong side, right? Yeah. You can believe that if you find the end of the rainbow, there's a leprechaun there with a pot of gold, and he will give it to you. Let me tell you, if you find a little leprechaun at the end of that rainbow with gold, you better turn around. You have been deceived. It's evil. But you can say crazy stuff as a Democrat. Nobody cares because nobody's paying attention. Because it's all about because the Republican-owned media won't show you that. Yeah. Just a wild deal. This is from theblaze.com. It's a great article. If you get the chance, go read it. It's by Will Thebo. Um, Co-ed, it says how America lost its warrior spirit when it feminized its academies. Co-ed training has eroded cohesion, readiness, and trust. Male-only academies once formed real soldiers, and it's time to bring the model back. That's a strong statement, Will. He goes on to talk about the feminization of our military and through the academies, and I agree with that in some. But it's not just the academies that have been feminized. Look at the NFL now, from my opinion. Now, you want to take everybody's health into consideration, and I'm okay with a lot of that. But look at our culture in general. Look, I've said it many times on here. Look at commercials and TV shows. How long, if not most of my life, was the guy's an idiot, mom's in charge, dad doesn't know what he's doing, and so on. That's the theme, right? I mean, The Simpsons, Family Guy, um, wherever you want to go. When it's the other way, whatever show it is, it doesn't matter. It's not just those, and I enjoy those shows. Don't get me wrong, but the guy's always the idiot because heaven forbid he not be right. You just get burned down. You know the feminization of America has long since happened. Now look, I'm a fan of women. However, not everybody needs to be one. Men should be able to be men. Now, there are a lot manlier guys than me around. I'm not saying I'm the epitome of a man. But we got to have some balls about us. You've got to be able to stand up for yourself. You've got to be able to put the limits in that a man has. You got to be able to deal with some stresses. Our military has to know that they can go and kill some. Just like I heard a story the other day of two guys getting out of the car and just beating the hell out of each other. I don't know what happened, but when I was telling another guy, he's like, "Oh yeah, that happens sometimes." That's exactly right. Every woman that I talk to, that why would they do that? Maybe it needed to happen. You don't know. You don't know the interaction there. Two guys get out of their car and fight. Something has happened. This is the way the world was formed. The feminization of our country has gone against the natural progression of the world. Anyway, it's a good article on the Blaze. Go read it if you get a chance. DOJ charges, this is from dailycallernewsfoundation.org. The DOJ charges a suspect with sending death threats to Benny Johnson. Well, Benny Johnson is a conservative. I quote him on here all the time. You can find his stuff on X, or a lot of times what's it called? Citizens Free Press carries some of his stuff. And once again, this is just another example of how hateful Republicans are. Well, Benny Johnson, he wanted to stay alive. He doesn't like people threatening him, and he's hateful for that. Obviously, it's a left wing nut that did threaten him, but it's Benny's fault for wanting to live and not be able to carry the leftist views that he should have. So shame on you, Benny. Um, shame on you. All right, here's this. This is interesting. This is from Talker Research. 6 in 10 Americans would let a brand sponsor their wedding. This says two things to me. Well, it says more than that, probably. Here's what I'm getting from it. First of all, it would be hilarious to have someone before they give their vows give like a NASCAR interview answer. Well, I'd like to thank Zales, and I'd like to thank this venue and that venue, and I'd like to thank Aunt Sue's catering, y'all. I just hope y'all are in for a good wedding, and y'all enjoy y'all enjoy the reception brought to you by this, and so and so's band's going to be here, and they're paid for. I think that would be like, hey, we're going to get to the vows. So, from a humor standpoint, I'm all for it. However, nothing is sacred anymore, right? Yeah, you can go to Vegas, you can have fun there and do your thing. You're not asking for a sponsor. Which, if you want to, go do it. I'm not really being judgmental, but we're so worried about commercialization. We're so worried about material wants and material needs that 6 in 10 Americans would like to have a brand sponsor them so they can have what they want. How many of those same 6 in 10 would want their church to sponsor them? How many of those same 6 in 10 would say, "Hey, instead of sponsoring me, don't..." And look, I understand a lot of people when they're getting married, they need all the sponsoring they can get. So let's just be clear about that. A lot of times, you're not in the best financial situation, whether you should be or you shouldn't be in the case. But how many people would say, I want my church to sponsor me, or in lieu of a gift, go down to your local homeless shelter and give them that $50 you were going to spend on me or whatever. Drop an extra 20 in the plate at church. You don't have to tell anybody it came from me. Well, our convictions are backwards right now in everything. And look, I'm a victim of commercialization. I like things. I like stuff. Our preacher did a whole sermon on it this past Sunday, and it was done well. That, hey, this is okay, but we can't lose focus on Jesus. It's easy to be, oh man, I get it. I get it. I get it all. But when we come down to it, what are we really trying to do? And the most important thing we can try to, look, side note, if you're listening to this and I get asked to speak at your wedding or your funeral, there's one thing that's going to happen. Pretty much anywhere else you ask me to speak. I'm going to tell somebody that Jesus is the only way to heaven. If that isn't your primary focus, we need to move forward. Now you can have a lot of fun outside of that. But a marriage is to represent uh, Christ and the body of believers coming together. That's the ultimate goal. So if you want to sponsor it, see if your church wants in on that. But if you don't, hey, that's on you. I'm not marrying you. so so there you go. Um, here's an article from the Wall Street Journal. Go read it if you're into this sort of thing. California's wine industry is in crisis. Side note, California is in crisis. so so there's that. But talking about the feminization of America, this on X.com from David J. Harris Jr. Students at Roseburg High School in Oregon walked out after a male student entered the girls' locker room. And now the school is reportedly threatening to suspend all of them for speaking out. Good job, kids. It's gonna be these next generations that save us. Let's have no doubt. Let's have no doubt. What the boomers have messed up, it'll be Generation Z and Generation Alpha that 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 save us. Gen X, you guys maintained and saw the problem at some point. Millennials, we are currently trying to correct, but it will be Generation Z and Generation Alpha that save this country and that bring us back to Christ. That is what's going to happen. The baby boomers and the hippies and the free drug and the free love and all of these things got us so far away and on a path so fast away that Gen X, you guys just kind of dealt with it. Millennials are like, as we've gotten older, like, hey, there's a problem. It'll be Generation Z and Generation Alpha. Lord, please be with these kids and move on them and protect them for standing up for what's right in the world. So there's that. Let's see what else I've got. I don't think I've got much more. It looks about like it. All right, everybody. Enjoy your Columbus Day. I hope God blesses each and every one of you. We'll be back and do it all again.